The room hums with expectation, a chilling undercurrent that has nothing to do with genuine warmth. It is a Sunday lunch, superficially disguised as a congenial family reunion, but the very air in the dining room is thick, almost suffocating, with a weight of unspoken agendas, carefully concealed motives, and an unsettling tension you can almost taste, sharp and metallic on the tongue. You've felt it, haven't you? That subtle, insidious shift in atmosphere, the almost imperceptible alteration in conversational dynamics. It's the way voices drop a cadence, adopting an artificial sweetness or a paternalistic tone, their pitch changing discernibly when they begin to talk about you, as if you are merely an object of discussion, rather than directly to you, a conscious and capable individual. You recognize the knowing glances exchanged across the linen-draped table, the conspiratorial nods, the gentle, seemingly affectionate pats on the hand that somehow feel less like comforting gestures of familial love and more like a subtle yet undeniable assertion of quiet, pervasive control, a soft yet firm hand tightening around your independence. It's an unsettling sensation, isn't it? A slow, insidious erosion of self. This is the insidious, often cloaked violence of ageism, a pervasive societal ill, frequently disguised in the soft, deceptive folds of care, concern, or even for your own good. It is the gradual, systematic chipping away at an individual's autonomy, the insidious stripping of their independence, all performed under the guise of purported benevolence and well-meaning intentions. It leaves a bitter residue, a feeling of being minimized, overlooked, and ultimately disempowered. But what if a quiet, almost imperceptible gesture, a single, unassuming piece of paper, held within its fibers the definitive power to decisively flip that carefully constructed script of control and manipulation? What if a calm, steady voice, delivering not a desperate shout of anger or a frustrated outburst, but the simple, unvarnished truth, could instantly freeze the ongoing abuse, halting a creeping, unwelcome takeover in its tracks, much like ice crystallizing over a turbulent stream? 3 potent words, unassuming in their simplicity, yet possessing an almost formidable power, that hold the key to stopping a domestic coup, to dismantling the carefully constructed narratives of others who seek to redefine your reality. Show the deed. This phrase, when delivered with quiet, unshakable conviction, is far more effective and devastatingly precise than shouting, infinitely more powerful than tears, desperate pleas, or emotional arguments. It represents the unassailable rule that instantaneously ends the argument, not by escalating the conflict, but by presenting an undeniable, irrefutable fact that cuts through all the carefully spun rhetoric. One quiet, impactful moment, and the deed itself speaks volumes, its legal weight and historical significance echoing through the stunned silence that follows. This kind of accountability, sudden and irrefutable in its arrival, can transform a seemingly hopeless situation within just 24 hours, much like a sudden, refreshing, and utterly cleansing rain after a prolonged period of oppressive, suffocating stillness, washing away the dust of deception and leaving clarity in its wake. Let me tell you about Arthur, a man whose life embodied quiet resilience and unwavering dignity. He sat, as he always had for decades, at the head of his own polished mahogany dining table, a position that rightfully declared his place as patriarch and master of his domain. His hands, slightly gnarled by a lifetime of honest work, first as a skilled craftsman, then as a diligent small business owner, but still remarkably strong, rested calmly upon the cool, gleaming surface of the oak. The familiar scent of roasted chicken and fresh bread, usually comforting, now mingled uneasily with the faint, unsettling aroma of unspoken intentions and thinly veiled greed. Around him, his niece, Sarah, a woman whose dazzling smile seemed permanently etched into her face, and his nephew, Mark, a man whose eyes held an almost predatory glint, spoke in carefully measured tones, their voices laced with an artificial solicitude. Their words, while superficially benevolent, were heavy with presumptions and thinly veiled assumptions about Arthur's declining capabilities and his predetermined future. "Uncle Arthur," Sarah began, her voice dripping with an almost saccharine sweetness, her hand reaching out to gently pat his forearm. "You know, truly, we only want what's absolutely best for you. Your well-being, your comfort, your absolute peace of mind. That is our singular, most earnest concern." Mark nodded vigorously in agreement, interjecting with a seemingly thoughtful frown, his gaze sweeping around the familiar, antique-filled room. "The house, Uncle Arthur, is just getting to be too much for you, isn't it? All those treacherous stairs, the constant upkeep of the garden, the never-ending maintenance. It's a burden, pure and simple. We've been doing some extensive research, you see, looking at some truly lovely assisted living options. Places with all the modern amenities, round-the-clock care, delicious meals, stimulating activities, much, much safer, with no more worries about a leaking roof or a broken furnace." Their gaze, as they spoke, swept around the beloved, familiar room, not with affection for the cherished memories it held, but with an assessing, almost possessive calculation, mentally appraising the value of each antique, each piece of art, already, in their minds, tallying the proceeds. Arthur listened intently, his expression carefully neutral, betraying none of the swirling emotions within. He was a man who had honed his observational skills over decades, capable of reading between the lines, dissecting motivations. He heard not genuine, selfless care, but the corrosive, underlying current of ageist bias, the insidious dismissal of his cognitive competence, the subtle, almost imperceptible suggestions that his home, the very sanctuary he had built with his own hands, nurtured with his devotion, and lived in for over 53 years, was now, in their meticulously crafted narrative, transformed into nothing more than a burdensome liability, a valuable asset to be conveniently managed, liquidated, and ultimately redistributed by others for their benefit. He saw the way their eyes flickered, not to his face, but around the room, assessing the antique sideboard passed down generations, the priceless Persian rug he'd bought on his travels, the beloved grandfather clock that chimed the hours of his life. They were already, in their minds, meticulously rearranging his life, stripping him of his independence, his cherished possessions, his very identity, piece by precious, irreplaceable piece. This is precisely where so many of us, when confronted with such covert aggression and subtle manipulation, make a common, yet entirely understandable mistake. We react emotionally. We allow anger, fear, or frustration to flare, becoming visibly agitated. We argue passionately, vehemently defending our independence with a rising, indignant voice, trying desperately to reason with the unreasonable. And in their self-serving narrative, that very anger, that heartfelt, impassioned defense, simply serves as irrefutable proof, confirming their preconceived notions and solidifying their perceived right to intervene. See? He's agitated. He's clearly not thinking straight. He's losing his faculties. He's becoming irrational. This emotional reaction, though entirely natural and justified, becomes a potent weapon in their hands, solidifying their claims and eroding your position. It is a trap, carefully set, designed to make you appear unstable. But Arthur, a man who had navigated countless complex situations in his long life, with years of quiet observation and a profound understanding of human nature, didn't fall into that carefully constructed trap. He had prepared, not with aggressive intent or a desire for confrontation, but with meticulous, strategic foresight, born of wisdom. He understood a profound truth, a bedrock principle of self-preservation. The most effective justice tool doesn't shout. It speaks with irrefutable proof, with laser-like precision, and with an unshakable calm that disarms, bewilders, and ultimately silences. He understood that in moments of quiet crisis, when manipulation and presumption are at play, silence, when paired with undeniable fact, is not a sign of weakness. It is, in fact, powerful evidence in itself, a profound testament to inner strength, resolute control, and unwavering self-possession. Earlier that morning, long before the family's arrival cast its shadow over his peaceful home, Arthur had performed his own personal justice prep ritual. It was a mere 10-minute investment in himself, an essential commitment to his peace of mind, to the preservation of his inner power, and to the fortification of his resolve. He sat in his favorite, well-worn armchair, the one by the sun-drenched window that overlooked his meticulously tended garden. Closing his eyes gently, he focused intently on his breath, initiating a practice of centered, mindful breathing. Deep, slow inhalations filled his lungs, feeling them expand with renewed energy and purpose, a quiet declaration of his continued vitality. As he exhaled, in a controlled, deliberate release, he consciously pushed away not just physical tension from his shoulders and jaw, but also any lingering doubts, anxieties, or fears about the day ahead, visualizing them dissipating like smoke. He felt his shoulders drop, the muscles in his jaw relax, a wave of profound calm washing over him, settling deep into his core. He affirmed to himself, "I am calm, I am capable, I am in control." He imagined a strong, almost incandescent protective shield forming around himself, not as a barrier to push others away with aggression, but as an invisible, permeable boundary designed to hold his own calm, steady ground, to keep his composure intact, unassailable, no matter the external pressures or the verbal assaults. Then, with this newfound inner stillness and centeredness, he meticulously adjusted his physical posture. His spine straightened, shoulders subtly back but relaxed, chin slightly lowered, eyes steady and focused, even though they were still closed. It was a posture that physically conveyed quiet confidence, a silent yet potent declaration of his unwavering resolve and self-assurance. He practiced speaking in a low, even voice, just above a whisper, carefully enunciating, mentally rehearsing the neutral, factual phrases he knew he might need to deploy. "I'd like to speak with the person in charge." In this particular scenario, he knew with absolute, unwavering certainty that person was him, Arthur, the sole authority over his life and his home, no one else. And "I'd like a copy of the policy." In this context, it was his policy, his established rules for his beloved home, legally enshrined and personally enforced by him alone. He also practiced phrases like, "That information is inaccurate," or "I'm not asking for your opinion," delivered with the same calm, unwavering tone. He then opened a small, leather-bound notebook, its cover worn smooth from years of handling, its pages slightly yellowed with age, a silent repository of his life's most important documents and decisions. Inside, neatly tucked and protected within a clear plastic sleeve, was a certified copy of his property deed. Not just any deed, but the official, legal document, bearing the indelible marks of authority, embossed with seals and signatures. This was the indisputable proof of ownership, the foundational pillar of his claim, the very cornerstone of his independence. Ik didn't just passively have it, he deliberately held it in his hand, feeling its smooth, cool weight, letting the crisp, official paper ground him firmly in reality, in law, in his rights. He felt the tangible weight of his legacy. He also had a brief, concise note, meticulously written in his own steady hand, outlining his explicit wishes regarding his personal care, and citing the specific clauses in his legally binding will that pertained directly to the house, ensuring its future, according to his desires. This note explicitly addressed his desire to age in place, his rejection of assisted living, and detailed the provisions for his continued care within his home. This was his backup, his ultimate safeguard. just in case the deed alone wasn't enough to quell their assumptions, or if they tried to challenge his mental capacity. He checked his phone, ensuring the voice recorder app was not only ready, but easily accessible. A shortcut already set on his home screen for quick activation. He made a mental note of the precise time and location, anticipating a need for an accurate log. This wasn't to be confrontational, he reminded himself, but to ensure an accurate, unbiased record of the conversation, to protect himself from misrepresentation or false accusations, for absolute clarity, for undeniable leverage, should the situation necessitate formal intervention. He also had tucked inside a printed copy of his advance directive and power of attorney documents, just to underscore that his affairs were in order. His order. This meticulous ritual gave him more than just simple readiness or a feeling of being prepared. It instilled in him a profound, unshakable sense of personal safety and fortified resolve. He knew his limits, understood the boundaries he would not cross, both physically and emotionally. He wasn't seeking a shouting match, nor was he preparing for any kind of physical confrontation, which he knew would only play into their narrative of his instability. His paramount concern was prioritizing his inherent dignity, his fundamental autonomy, and his hard-won peace of mind above all else. He understood deeply that laws and regulations governing property, elder care, and personal autonomy vary significantly across different jurisdictions, and therefore, careful adaptation to local legal frameworks is always key. However, the foundational principles of diligent documentation via formal channels, having your papers in order, and the strategic knowledge of precisely when and how to escalate a situation are universal tenets of self-protection, empowering individuals regardless of their location. He was also clear on the local laws regarding recording conversations, ensuring his actions were entirely above board. Back at the dining table, the air thick with the scent of a fading meal and mounting tension, the conversation resumed its predictable, manipulative course, driven by Sarah and Mark's escalating agenda. "We've even found a prospective buyer, Uncle Arthur," Mark announced, his voice barely concealing a triumphant, almost predatory glint in his eye, a hint of victory already tasted on his tongue. He shuffled some printed documents on the table, ostensibly market analyses. "A very good offer, actually, far more than you'd expect. It would more than cover all your new assisted living expenses, provide you with plenty of capital to live on, absolutely worry-free for the rest of your days. Imagine, Uncle Arthur, no more financial burdens, no more taxes, no more maintenance, just pure relaxation, social activities, and delicious, chef-prepared meals." They continued to paint a vivid, alluring picture of a blissful, passive existence, carefully, deliberately, omitting the crucial part where Arthur would, in their vision, lose everything that truly rooted him, his cherished memories embedded in every crevice of the house, his deep-seated independence, his very identity tied to the place he had called home for over half a century. They spoke with an underlying current of ageist bias that presumed his advanced years rendered him an easy target, ripe for their persuasion, implicitly incapable of managing his own substantial assets, his own substantial life decisions. They assumed his emotional attachment could be easily overridden by their logical, self-serving financial arguments or dismissed as mere sentimentality. They even mentioned potential tax benefits and estate planning advantages to further their narrative. Arthur waited patiently, allowing a natural, almost imperceptible pause to settle into the conversation, a momentary lull in their relentless monologue. His eyes, clear and steady, met theirs directly, conveying a sense of calm strength. "I genuinely appreciate your expressed concern for my future and well-being," he said, his voice surprisingly low, yet impeccably clear, perfectly controlled, effortlessly cutting through the lingering hum of their meticulously constructed narrative. The table, which moments before had buzzed with their confident pronouncements and persuasive rhetoric, fell into an immediate, profound, Silence. Sarah's fixed smile visibly faltered, her practiced composure cracking under the unexpected assertion. Mark leaned back abruptly in his chair, a flicker of surprise, even mild shock, crossing his features. His carefully rehearsed script derailed. This single, carefully chosen sentence wasn't delivered with anger or defensiveness. Instead, it served as an unexpected, yet firm and unequivocal assertion of self, a quiet declaration of his continued presence, his unyielding authority, and his right to be heard as an equal. It was the sentence that subtly, yet definitively, stopped their relentless monologue, shifting the power dynamic. However, Arthur continued, his voice gaining a subtle but undeniable firmness, his gaze moving deliberately between them. This is, and unequivocally remains, my home, and I am quite capable of managing my own affairs entirely on my own terms, as I have successfully done for many decades. As he spoke, he reached slowly, deliberately, into the inner pocket of his jacket. The soft, almost imperceptible rustle of paper filled the sudden void of silence, amplifying the anticipation. With a steady, unhurried hand, he pulled out the certified copy of his property deed. He laid it flat on the pristine linen tablecloth, precisely between the floral centerpiece and Mark's conspicuously resting hand, a physical barrier to their encroaching plans. The paper, crisp, official, and bearing the indelible imprimatur of legal authority, an embossed seal, formal signatures, and official stamps, caught the gentle afternoon light streaming in through the bay window, its significance undeniable, its presence a stark counterpoint to their speculative words. "The deed," he stated, his voice unwavering, resonating with quiet power, "is unequivocally in my name, and it has been for 53 years now, a continuous, unbroken testament to my sole ownership and my family's legacy." The room seemed to physically contract, shrinking around them, the air growing thick, not with the earlier hum of false expectation, but now with a palpable, stunned shock, almost a suffocating disbelief. This was the powerful, undeniable moment the deed truly spoke, not just as a static document, but as a living, breathing testament to Arthur's unassailable rights and enduring presence. Mark's face flushed a deep crimson, his earlier triumph and carefully constructed facade vanishing under the weight of the undeniable. Sarah's jaw visibly dropped, her mouth slightly agape, her practiced smile entirely gone, her composure crumbling in an instant. All their meticulous plans, their arrogant presumptions, their thinly veiled manipulations, their entire narrative of Arthur's diminished capacity, his supposed inability to manage big assets, all of it shattered into 1,000 irretrievable pieces by the quiet, dignified presentation of a single, unchallengeable piece of paper. This was the irrefutable proof that summarily ended their every excuse, their every justification, their every spurious argument. This wasn't merely a document. It was a profound testament to his enduring competence, his rich history, his unwavering autonomy, and his rightful, sovereign place as the decision-maker of his own life. His substantial assets were firmly his, legally and morally, and his even bigger dignity, now visibly asserted, was beyond any form of reproach. Furthermore, Arthur continued, his tone remaining remarkably calm, almost pedagogical, now looking deliberately from Sarah to Mark, and then back again, ensuring sustained eye contact with each of them, his presence filling the space. "My legally binding will, a document carefully prepared years ago and regularly reviewed, clearly states my explicit wishes regarding this property, wishes that emphatically do not include its sale, nor my relocation to any other residence. It specifically outlines my desire to remain here, in my own home, supported by the provisions I have carefully established." He paused again, a deliberate, pregnant silence, allowing the full weight of his carefully chosen words, backed by legal authority, to sink deep into their surprised and now bewildered minds. Policy, he implicitly stated, unequivocally beats ego. His policy, his will, his non-negotiable decisions regarding his life and property. As the undisputed owner of this property, a title I have held for over half a century, I, and I alone, set the house rules. And one of those fundamental, non-negotiable rules is that all decisions about my home are made exclusively by me, and by no one else, regardless of their perceived concern. He picked up the deed once more, holding it aloft for a brief, impactful moment, allowing them to fully absorb the official seal, the dense legal language, the unmistakable authority it represented, a physical manifestation of his power. Then, with a subtle but immensely powerful gesture, he placed it back on the table. But this time, he deliberately slid it towards himself, pulling it clearly out of their reach, into his personal space. It was a quiet, yet profoundly symbolic act, a calm, decisive reclamation of his personal space, his inherent authority, his unchallenged ownership, his future. It was a clear, unambiguous boundary. I will not be selling my home. I will not be moving from this house, he reiterated, his voice leaving no room for doubt, no crack for argument. And while your expressed concern is noted and, I assume, well-intentioned, he added, his gaze now firm and unwavering, I expect my decisions, particularly concerning my own life and property, to be respected, unequivocally, and without further discussion. He then turned his gaze directly to Sarah, his eyes conveying a quiet but firm command that brooked no argument. Sarah, you mentioned engaging with a prospective buyer. I would appreciate it if you immediately ceased any further discussions, negotiations, or even casual inquiries whatsoever concerning my property. Such actions are unauthorized and unwelcome. Then his focus shifted to Mark, his tone equally resolute. Mark, your suggestions for my future are, as always, noted, but they are also entirely unsolicited and frankly inappropriate. I will manage my own future precisely as I always have done, independently and without external interference from either of you. The ensuing silence in the dining room was utterly deafening, a stark, profound contrast to the earlier cacophony of their eager assumptions and manipulative rhetoric. There was no shouting from Arthur, no anger, no emotional outburst, no desperate pleas for understanding, just calm courage, clear and unambiguous boundaries, and the undeniable, irrefutable power of well-prepared documentation. 3 simple, calm steps: preparation, assertion, documentation, leading to one incredibly loud and impactful result, the immediate re-establishment of his rightful authority. The visible outcome was immediate and stark. Sarah and Mark exchanged defeated, bewildered glances, their shoulders slumping almost imperceptibly, their carefully constructed plans dissolving before their eyes. Their entire contract with an imaginary buyer was effectively cancelled, their uninvited, self-serving agenda exposed, discredited, and rendered utterly baseless. They had arrogantly assumed he was a man with no one truly in charge, a vessel waiting to be steered. They had just been shown, in the most definitive, irrefutable way possible, precisely who was. Their faces reflected not just disappointment, but a profound shock at their miscalculation. This pivotal confrontation wasn't just about the ownership of a house. It was about something far more fundamental and deeply human. It was about Arthur's inherent dignity, his fundamental autonomy, and his inviolable right to self-determination, regardless of his age or perceived vulnerability. It was about unequivocally demonstrating that age, in itself, does not diminish one's cognitive competence, nor does it automatically revoke one's rightful ownership of assets, one's ability to make sound decisions, or one's right to live life on one's own terms. And importantly, the presence of allies can change outcomes significantly. turning the tide in favor of the vulnerable. Sometimes that powerful ally is a lawyer's certified letter, arriving with official weight and legal gravitas. Sometimes it's a quiet, observant family member or friend who discreetly hits record on their phone, capturing crucial evidence of undue influence or manipulation. But sometimes, most powerfully, it's simply the unshakable truth, presented with absolute calm and undeniable authority by the person directly affected, bolstered by irrefutable proof. This collective power of preparedness, documentation, and calm assertion creates an unbreachable defense. Your dignity, like Arthur's, is not, and never will be, negotiable. It is an intrinsic part of who you are. Your unique story, your hard-earned assets, your precious life, your independent decisions, these are fundamentally yours to define, yours to control, and yours to fiercely protect against any encroachment. So, reflecting deeply on Arthur's courage, resilience, and methodical approach, what specific, actionable step will you take today to safeguard your own autonomy and reinforce your boundaries? Choose just one and commit to it wholeheartedly. Perhaps it's systematically saving those essential policy numbers for your home or community rules in an easily accessible, secure place, a digital document, a physical binder, or setting a quick recording shortcut on your phone, practicing its activation, ready for any unexpected confrontation or need for documentation. Maybe it's practicing one calm, assertive phrase in front of the mirror, honing your delivery until it feels natural, confident, and utterly convincing, rehearsing your power. Or perhaps it's choosing one trusted, empathetic ally, a friend, a legal advisor, a supportive family member, an ombudsman, a community advocate, whom you can confide in, prepare with, and rely upon for unwavering support and guidance should the need arise. Then make the crucial commitment to your own personal 10-minute justice prep ritual. Make it a regular practice, a habit of empowerment. Take that centering breath, deep and purposeful, connecting to your inner strength. Steady your posture, grounding yourself physically, projecting confidence. Feel your feet firmly on the ground, connecting you to reality and stability. Open that note you've prepared, the one with the undeniable facts, the established rules, the unvarnished truth of your situation. Remind yourself unequivocally of your rights, your boundaries, and your power. Justice, remember, isn't always a thunderous roar echoing through a courtroom or an angry accusation hurled across a table. Often, and perhaps most profoundly, it's a quiet whisper, a quiet, confident, and unwavering whisper that carries the formidable, unassailable weight of irrefutable proof, delivered with unwavering calm and resolute conviction. Comment below with the action you're taking today and what specific scenario or challenge related to autonomy and elder care you'd like us to tackle next in our discussions. Your voice matters. Your dignity is your ultimate power. Protect it fiercely, for it is yours alone.